Okay, well, welcome. My name is Rich Harrington. Glad you guys could be with us today. And it's great to see so many folks from all around the world here. We're going to be taking a deep dive today into Luminar AI, and it's a combination of things. We're going to be doing some demos, have members of the Skylum team a little bit later this morning. Our CEO is going to join us and take your questions live, so that'll be a lot of fun. We've also got a wealth of different artists, photographers, and digital artists who are going to be joining us and sharing their ideas and their skills with you so you can learn. And along the way, every once in a while, we'll put up some links for some freebies that you can download to get things fun and to help you get some of the same files that we're using so you can really explore these and enjoy them. So I'm glad you guys could all be here. Most of you are joining us in the webinar mechanism. Some of you might be watching on YouTube or watching the replay later. My name is Rich Harrington. I am the Chief Product Evangelist, and it's my job to help people get the most out of Luminar AI, as well as to listen to you and get your feedback. So we're really glad you guys could be here. I see that we have people using Q&A, so this is awesome. So hopefully everything's fine. And Ralph, I see that you're wondering if you're hearing audio here, but hopefully you can hear us now. So everyone else, I think you guys can hear me. If you can, just give us a thumbs up in the chat pod. Let us know that the audio is coming through clean. That's great. Thank you so much, Daniel. Perfect. Okay. Well, then we're going to get things underway and jump right in. Again, we're going to be looking at Luminar AI, and we'll take your questions. Also, we'll be hearing from other folks today, like Vignette and some others. So we've got a lot of great panelists who are going to be jumping in and sharing their ideas with you throughout the morning. All right, let me go ahead and switch over here. I'll share my screen, and we will jump right into Luminar AI. There we go. Let's flip over. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Luminar AI, and we're taking a look at it with a deep dive today. We're going to explore a lot of different features and walk you through what the software can do. Also, we'd love to hear any of the questions that you might have, so feel free to bring those to the forefront. We'll be glad to get your questions in, and we'll cover them and really help you explore what the application is capable of. Let me just take this nice and full screen so everyone could see. So that's perfect. There we go. And here we are. All right, so what we're doing is you'll see that we've got Luminar open. Luminar works as both an application and a plugin, so we'll be using it today a variety of ways. You could use it as a standalone application, or you could use it with tools like Photoshop, Photos for macOS, or Lightroom. But what Lightroom is going to not be able to do, Luminar often can. And Luminar is designed to solve problems. So let's tackle some of those problems to begin with. We're well known for things like replacing the sky or doing beautiful image effects, but I want to show you just some problem-solving things we could do to get things underway. So here we have a RAW file straight from a Fuji camera. There's nothing wrong with this RAW file. It's what the camera captured. But RAW doesn't necessarily see every detail. It's in the file, but you often have to unlock it. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'll show you what's possible. Now, Luminar gives you two ways of working. The first way of working is templates. Templates analyze the photo, recognize the content, and come back with suggestions. So you'll see in this case, it analyzed the photo and suggested nature. It also said that a thematic collection and urban style might be good matches, but based upon the content of the photos, it thought that nature was the best set to start with. Now, these are different options, and what you could do is easily click. So with a single click, I bring that to life. Here are different options, and you can see how we can really make that come to life. And then with a single slider, adjust that. Now, that works great, especially when you are wanting to jump in and quickly get things done. But you also are welcome to develop from scratch if that's how you prefer. So here's what we're going to do here is we're going to go in and start to adjust with Enhance. Enhance AI is the best starting point. So here's what we're going to do. First off, we will use the Light tool to make one small change. This allows you, if you're using different DCP profiles, to apply them. Otherwise, don't get sucked into all these tools like black and white and highlights and all of those things. These are the same tools that every other photo editor has. Instead, start up here with Enhance. And with Accent AI, you are able to balance the exposure, the color, and the tonality with a single slider. If we click for the before and after, you'll see what a good job that did quickly and how it was able to really adjust that in. Okay? So as you see there, we could pull that in with accent. Then we also have structure. And structure is like clarity, but better. It adds selective detail. Now, there's a little secret here in the light tool, a tool that is unique that a lot of people overlook. It's called smart contrast. Contrast is normally the difference between the lightest and darkest areas. Normally, when you change contrast, you change saturation. So by adjusting our smart contrast, we could reduce the contrast here without affecting saturation. Smart contrast lets you unstop or unblock the image very quickly. Now, you see we went to a nice natural exposure very quickly, and this is what's there. But now we could tap into a few more tools. Things like landscape has foliage enhancer, so we could just target the greens and bring them out. Or golden hour to bring out the warmth of the sun very quickly. All simple. Details lets you enhance things like the small, medium, and large details within the image. So I could bring some of those details there for the flowers to life. And that's just nice and quick. It allows you to bring things together very quickly and very easily. Okay, let's go back in here and save some time. I adjusted one image. I want to synchronize that. So what I could just do is right-click, and I could choose the adjustments here. And you see copy adjustments, Command or Control C. Select your next image, and you could just paste those adjustments. And because we utilized artificial intelligence, those adjustments are going to react intelligently to the photo's content. And you see that it automatically balanced that picture, creating similarity in exposure and color, but allowed us to bring that to life. And that works very quickly and very easily to get that in there. Okay? So right now, as we're working through, I was showing a RAW file there, Ukej, but you can work on JPEGs, you can work on RAWs, doesn't matter. Some of you are going to say, well then, what type of computer are you working on? This is just a nice medium-level Mac Mini computer, about 3 years old, so typical thing. I do have incredibly powerful computers that I get to use from time to time, but I wanted to use something for the demos today that was attainable, a machine like you all may have. So this is just a off-the-shelf Mac Mini, decent power, about 16 gigs of RAM, and has all the things I need to run Luminar on it. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's go through here though and tackle another image, and this is another RAW file, this time from a Nikon image. And I want to show you what's possible here as we're working, okay? Mateo's asking about M1 support. We're hard at work on that. It'll be coming soon. Right now, we run using Rosetta, but M1 native support will come shortly. The team is actively at work on that. It's coming along very well. All right, let's go back to templates here. And you'll see with the For This Photo section that it scans the image. And again, it identified landscapes, nature, and filmatic as suggestions. Here we go. I'll do an easy landscape collection here. So Frank, I mentioned that I'm using a 3-year-old Mac Mini. The M1 chips are only about 3 months old, so I'm using an older computer here on purpose, okay? So let's go forward. Here we have our easy collection for sunset, and with one click, we take this to a nice sunlight image, and I like that. Or gentle clean light, and you could see what a great job that did bringing it to life. I'm gonna go under the Edit menu now, and I wanna show you something. A lot of attention gets put on sky replacement, but if you've got a good sky to work with, we have Sky Enhancer. Start with the sky you have. You might think it's boring, but it's not, because with Sky Enhancer, it can identify all of those details in the sky, and it brings out the contrast in the sky, it pops the clouds, it adds just a touch of depth, and it does it without oversaturating. If you crank up vibrance, it never works. The clouds start to take on a color and they get fringing and noise. But with Sky Enhancer, you are able to bring that sky to life very quickly and very easily. Then, under Landscape, take advantage of Golden Hour, which is going to bring out the warmth of the sun. And if needed, you've got dehaze, which also can be used to enhance the sky, and foliage enhancer. And with advanced, you could target what's the color for that foliage. So I can warm or cool that. And you see we bring it to life. That was all before we did a lot with Accent AI and just a touch of structure there. So you could see how quickly we were able to lift that image out and bring out those details, which works out very, very well. Now, if you have noise in an image, which you might, I suggest a couple of things. First off, click so you can zoom in and view the image at full quality. You want to be able to see this so you could really judge what's happening. And I'm at 100% magnification. Now, as you adjust the denoise, it's really easy to see the results. The critical mistake that most people make when denoising is that they go in and they don't zoom to 100%. So they're not viewing the actual pixels, they're viewing a simulation. So it's difficult to judge if you're getting the noise cleanup accurately. And you see there, and it's a little tough over zoom, it's been cleaned up immensely. Then you could just click and it zooms right back out and you're done with that image. If you want to add a little style, some of our standout tools, excuse me, are going to be things like Mystical. Adds a nice gentle light, and you could even open up the shadows with Mystical, using it to fill that light in very easily to the background. So as you can see there, we've really filled the colors in on this quite nicely. Okay? All right, so here we go. So there's a question about small, medium, and large details. This is a perfect image for that. So let's zoom in here to about 50%. So I'm going to go ahead, 1 second. I managed to, wouldn't be a demo if we didn't manage to occasionally crash. Let me go ahead and open that back up. So there's a question there between small, medium, and large details. So small, medium, and large details are the ability to go in and pull out the edges. So small details are going to be things like the tiny tips on the plant. Medium details are going to be the broader surfaces, and large details are going to be like the flat areas. So let me reshare my screen here and I'll show you what that looks like. So here we go, share screen. I managed to click on one too many buttons there. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at that. And we'll go here under details. And I'll adjust first the small details. Even if we're not zoomed in there, I think you could see how those edges are popping. By the way, did you notice that you can go negative on an area? So I could do more small details, and that really pops the edges here on the plant. And then I could pull the large details down, which is the area like the sky. So what I actually did there was I reduced the amount of detail in the sky, blurring it a little bit, and removing some of the noise and the pixelization back there in the image. So you see it cleaned it up. And then medium details is doing the interior area there on the plant. So if I crank that up a little high, hopefully you could see that that really pops. I'll turn that on and off. David, does that work for you? Can you see the difference there in what the small, medium, and large details does? And what's cool about this is you don't have to use any sort of AI for sharpening. I know that there are AI sharpener products on the market. That's great. And there's noise reduction. This is a real-time effect. So much faster. And it's not something that AI is often needed for. In this case, it could really go in and bring this to life. So hopefully you could see that. And then you still have your traditional sharpen. The reason why I don't suggest using sharpen too much is that it creates noise or artifacts. So instead, use small, medium, and large details with a kiss of structure. Structure is intelligent sharpening in depth and lets you really go in and bring that image to life. So I hope that that makes sense and kind of gives you an idea on how to pull that all together. David, I hope that gave you the answer that you were looking for there. So I think that's a good, really enhancement there on the image itself. Okay, let's go on here back to the catalog. So Daniel, you're asking, how can I copy individual adjustments from one photo to another? So here's the reason why we don't do that. You might be familiar that in Lightroom, you have a dialog and you choose copy and paste adjustments. Lightroom only has about 40 checkboxes because that's really the number of adjustments that it has. Luminar has more than 50 tools. Those tools can have 4 to 20 adjustments. So if you were to bring up a dialog that had every single checkbox, you would have to scroll through about 14 pages of information. So instead of that, what we tell you to do, better off, rather than worrying about copying and pasting individual adjustments, is make your own templates, which I'll show you here in a moment, and rely upon the AI tools, because those AI tools will automatically adjust. If you set the exposure with Accent AI and you paste it on an image that's darker, it's going to bring that exposure up to the level that you picked. If you set and copy and paste that adjustment to an image that was brighter, it's going to pull that image down. So it's actually smart like that, and it goes off of what you want the image to look like. So by sticking with some of those tools that have AI in there, it's going to be a lot smarter with how that works. So I hope that that makes sense there, but I will show you how we can make a template now. So we'll go from there, and we'll pull that in. So give us a second here, and we'll jump that in. For those of you that are joining us as panelists a little bit early, if you could just disable your cameras while we're waiting, that would be great. All right, let's go in here, and I will reshare the computer, and we'll flip back here to Luminar. All right, we'll go in here to the catalog, and I want to keep talking about structure for a moment because I love structure. Structure is just this incredible problem solver, and not enough folks use it. So let's take this aerial here for a moment, and we're going to fill some things in. So first off, templates will analyze the image and make a suggestion. It recognized that this might make a great black and white. Urbans do that. A bird's eye view. Well, that's cool. It recognized that this was an aerial photo and it's suggesting from here. And we've got natural skies for aerial images. In all cases, it was clear that Luminar detected that this was an aerial photo. So with one click, we could start to bring that to life. And you can see there how easy it is to preview and audition these. If it's not quite right, you want a little bit less, just use the single slider here to dial it in, which is cool. These make it simple to browse. And you're going to see here with the update to Luminar that templates are much simpler. You've got your favorites, you've got the ones that you've created, you've got the ability here to see ones that you've purchased or received with your Luminar X membership. And these can also be suggested now by the engine. And you've got any older ones that you might have made as templates or looks with older versions. Okay, nice and simple. Let's go ahead here and just apply this subtle, bring that out a little bit. And now I'm going to jump into structure. Structure is the real hero here. So let's crank it up all the way for a moment and boost it. First up, I want you to notice what a great job that did on really bringing out the clouds and the land. But what it didn't do is add a bunch of noise. It didn't put noise in the water here. So the cool thing about structure is it does a great job of adding what would often be called clarity, but without the problems of clarity. You don't get halos, you don't get ringing edges, you don't get extra noise. So it really helps to bring that to life. And then if you use those small, medium, and large details, this is perfect for filling things in. So if we take a look there at the buildings, and you see we add some small details and some medium details, but pull down the large, that we've got a really nice pop there of bringing out the details and the maximum contrast in that sensor, which works quite nicely. Okay? Also, don't forget about composition. This can analyze your photo, and with one click, we'll suggest a proper crop. In this case, it leveled the photo, and it also moved beyond some of the vignetting at the edges, and it placed our subject here right along the rule of thirds. So if you struggle with that, again, you can click, and it's going to auto-align there to fix the horizon. So that works nicely. And if you are looking at this here, and you realize that these aren't quite vertical, clicking here will fix your vertical perspective, and just dials that in so that you've got good, clean vertical lines. There we go. Click the button and it's applied. And we've got our update to our image. Okay, let's take a few questions and then we'll go into some of the other stuff here. So I'm seeing, we'll go back to the catalog, that with update 2, it's not possible to use the mask for denoise or sharpen. You can. It's going to depend on what you're doing. They might just be hidden. So if we were to go into that, you normally will not see the masks until you move a slider. So it's not that we got rid of the ability, it's that you have to first move a slider, then you get the mask controls. And now you see we could paint, radial, or gradient mask. Now I'm going to do this on another picture for a moment, but this is pretty cool. What's awesome here is that every tool in Luminar has masks. I can't say every tool, I should say almost every tool in Luminar. Tools like the light tool, which are designed to develop the entire image, that makes no sense to have a mask. Tools like, certain ones like optical correction, you wouldn't mask out part of a lens correction. But pretty much every other tool can be adjusted this way. All right, let's bring this image to life with some good depth. Again, I'll start with a template. It's going to analyze the content of the scene, and it came up with a few recommendations. Influencer, thematic, that's nice. And it also reached in and recognized the cinematographer collection from Luminar X. So with your Luminar X membership, if you choose to subscribe, you get a new template pack and a new sky pack each month. And you can see here how with different looks, you could explore the different creativity that different artists have with using the tool. So as I click through here, I could try. I like this vintage one, in fact. It's just a little strong, so I'll go into edit and I could see how that's made. The dots indicate which tools were used. So if you need to, you can dial that in and take a look at what the artist did. So I like this one, but I'm just going to take the smart contrast down a bit so it's not so contrasty. I like that. And then I'm going to explore my mood. Mood is a very overlooked tool. And later today, we're going to give you some extra LUTs that you can load into Mood. But if you click here, you're going to see a whole bunch of recipes. Mood are color styles, and don't overwrite them here. They're really powerful. So as you look, you can audition these. If you want to really know what's happening, my suggestion is temporarily bump this up to a higher amount. Now it's easier to see as you mouse over your different color recipes. I like this 1960 one, a bit of an aged feel. 1990s, a little grungier. Candlelight, that actually works nicely here. I'm going to go with Candlelight, bring up the saturation, and just tone down the amount. And you can see there with contrast how you can dial that in. Instantly, it just gave my image a color grade without having to do a ton of work. So this is a cool way to add a little bit of color style. Then standouts here are going to be mystical or glow. Under glow, there's one of our most popular features. It's just a tad hidden. It's called Orton Effect. And so Orton Effect creates a nice richness. It adds soft light to the scene, and it does some local contrast. So you can control the softness setting. You can control how much brighter it makes the scene and how much contrast it adds, and whether that light is warm or cool. And so you can see there that we added light to the scene. It's like bringing extra sunlight or carrying in a lighting source to your shoot. So Orton Effect and Orton Effect Soft, which is going to be a bit more bloomy, is a nice way to add gentle highlights to a scene and really give it that gentle feeling of soft light. So glow is very effective, but I like the Orton Effect for some extra touch. Okay? So I hope that that makes sense. Let's see what else we got here. I'm thinking of buying Silver FX Pro to improve my mono images. Does it have time? So yes, and I'm going to give you, I'm going to show you some LUTs for this, and then later today we'll give these LUTs away for free, but I'll show you what's built in. So my favorite way of doing black and white is to use lookup tables, because these allow you a whole bunch of recipes. So I'm going to go here, and you'll see there's different ones loaded, but let's just set that to 100%. And I'm going to load some custom LUT files. This will browse your computer, And later today, I'm going to give some images away from different kits, and you'll see some lookup tables here, right? So I'm going to give some away from our friends, and they've got a lookup table set here called Black and White LUTs. So we'll give these away for free later, and there's also some sepia tones in there. And here are about 20 different recipes for black and white. So I could just audition one of these here and apply, and we've got an instant black and white recipe, black and white contrast. Let's load another one. And let me try this one here, a different, more contrasty one. And you see that they're instant recipes. Now, don't worry that these aren't customizable, because that's really important in black and white, but let's go with a nice black and white film stock look here, and I'll click apply. Now, dial in the contrast for the LUT, and then you could play with the saturation, which also affects the conversion. And then here's what you're going to do. Go up to the color tab and down to HSL. Now, what you could do is shift things. So using the luminance, we can shift the different areas of the photo. I could target an area like the oranges, so I can make that a little bit richer or darker, and then lift up some of these other areas here to dial that in. So you can see there how we're affecting her clothing with the black and white conversion. By using the luminance slider with the black and white LUT, you get really detailed control over the black and white. And then a little bit of structure, and that just brings the depth to light. And notice I haven't even touched the black and white tool. Go to details, add that in, and then to finish that black and white look, I would use glow or mystical, or even both. It gives it a nice soft richness there. Notice how mystical turns the blacks into those nice milky whites and blacks that we like. And we could put a little bit of film grain in. This was improved with version update 2. It's now a much more accurate effect. For best results, zoom to 100%, but you're getting a real-time preview here on the grain. So as you dial that in to give it a film grain, you can. And I'll just click back out, and let's give that just a little bit of a vignette. So what I like with our vignette is it's not just a dumb vignette, right? Like dark edges. Instead, you can click Choose Subject and place the vignette on your subject. And now you can dial that in. And you'll even see the ability to brighten the inside of the vignette so you don't have to over darken the outside edge. And let's give that a nice feather for a gentle transition. Okay, so you can see how we pulled that together. And if you want to paint with light, you can go into Dodge and Burn. And Dodge and Burn will non-destructively let you paint light in. So I can say, oh, you know what? Let me get a nice soft brush, lower the strength here, and I just want to darken up here. So you could brush that in. And what's cool here is you could start stronger. So you could brush that in, paint the light in where you want your shadows. Maybe I want this a little darker. And you paint it. And then when you're all done, you just adjust the overall amount. So the benefit there is that you don't have to leave it at that full strength. You could then just use the overall amount slider to dial that to the right amount. So that lets you paint with shadows. And if you need to, you can jump in here to local masking and add another basic adjustment. So now it's super simple. Maybe I want to put a little gradient here and put a gradient from top to bottom, like a lighting source. And what I could do is just pull that exposure down. And let me pull down that corner and guide your eye into the subject. So this way I can create like a flag on the image. And if you need to see that, you could show the mask so you understand what's happening. And that helps you understand where you've painted with the light. So that's allowed me to darken that area in that upper corner there. And I could even play with the shadows or the highlights independently there and just lower those down and even lower the structure, and it acts like a blur in that area to pull your eye with focus into your subject. So I hope that makes sense. And then one of the other things Silver Effects does is lets you add in textures and things. We have those too. So you can go to texture, and earlier this week we released a texture kit, a paper texture kit, but we'll put that link up later, and we gave it away for free, so I'm going to give it away for free here too. You just click Load Texture and navigate. And so I can go here into my paper texture kit, which we again released earlier this week on AI Insiders. And you can go into the paper textures and you'll see different options. And so I could layer in something here like a nice overlay. So let me just switch this to icons and it'll browse. And I see different types here. And so I could layer in something like a paper texture. It's going to layer that on top. I'll put that in really strong for a moment. And then I could adjust the opacity to taste as well as use blending modes. So something like a soft light works very nicely. And it just gives it that organic feel of paper so that this doesn't look so digital. Okay, I hope that that made sense. So that was a black and white conversion. So I hope that that supports that idea. What I want to do now is tackle a few questions and then we'll go back into some demos. And thank you guys for putting all these questions in. I see a couple of you with your hands raised. Put your questions into the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them there. So let's tackle some of these here. So with low light noise, I have to use a stronger denoise software. Are you guys enhancing denoise? So John, what you might have seen there is that besides denoise, using negative structure is also a great way to use an AI tool that can remove noise. So a negative structure brushed in is going to solve that for you. Not to say that there aren't other denoise tools out there, but I find that that works quite well, is that negative structure. And then you can use the paintbrush to brush it in if you need to. So no problem there. We're seeing a suggestion for virtual copies. Yep. If you guys have suggestions, feel free to submit those. We take them through the AI Insiders platform and also to support. That is one that the team has looked at. We are not doing anything with focus stacking right now, but there are lots of tools out there that you could use for that work as standalone apps. When is Bokeh AI coming? Well, let's tackle this one really quick. Bokeh AI is expected with update 3. We just shipped update 2. So I know that you're like, well, what does that mean? That means it should be next. So it's hard at work. We've already seen it. I've already used it. It's really, really cool. And if you look at the human relighting technology inside of the sky replacement tool, you actually get a sneak peek of Bokeh AI because you can see things being selected there. So let me show you that technology so you can see how Luminar AI is able to segment people and separate them. So we'll go ahead here and I'm just going to share my screen and we'll flip over. And let's go to a shot of a person. So what I want to do is pick an image where there's a person and a sky. And I want to show you how we can use sky replacement as well as the human aware relighting tool. So let's go here and we'll come into the edit module. And this is a cool photo from Javier Pardina. We're working with a JPEG version of it here and I like it, but I want a little bit more in the sky. So under our tools here, I'm just going to go up to our sky tool and now you could visually browse skies. So if you've got the all skies view, you could see them. You can click the plus button to add more. You can go to the custom skies view and again, click the plus button to add more. Here's a couple of ones that I added. And when I click the button, it's replaced. Now, initially, it's not going to be right because in this case, we've got an out of focus background and an in focus sky. Alert, this is the way to tell people that you replaced the sky. What you need to do is match it. So what I'm going to do is blur this to match. What's cool here is in the sky tool, come down and take a look at the sky adjustment. And now what you could do is defocus that new sky until it matches the focus of the rest of the picture. And what we can do as well is add in some grain so that it matches the grain structure. Now that's too much, but I just wanted you to see it. And so this way you could add a touch of grain so it has the same grain level as the rest of the photo. Now what we need to do is the relighting. So the relight strength is going to relight the rest of the scene. And if I use my mask refinement here, I could push this and just push the global a little bit as well as the fixed detail slider. And what that does is that helps clean up your edges. So now as you swap in different skies, you're going to see how they adjust. And so if I go to my blue sky here and go with something soft with fluffy clouds, you see how it matches it nicely. And take a look here at the scene relighting. So these are new. Previously we had a single relight slider, but now that relight slider separates the person from the rest of the photo. So you could relight the rest of the scene, and then with the relight human slider, adjust the person so they match the color and exposure of the new sky. So as you swap these, they'll adjust the lighting on it. So if I put something in here that's a little bit warmer, you're going to see how it matched the color there. And you could independently use the relight saturation to pick up those colors as well. So hopefully that gives you an idea on a couple of things. One of those is the Relight human technology, and that is letting us independently adjust the person from the background, which is one of the cool things that's going to be doing in Bokeh AI, which will allow you to blur the background independent of the person. So we took that feature that's going to be part of Bokeh AI and also put it into this sky update, allowing you the ability to have better control over what's happening here, which again is pretty cool. So hopefully that helps you understand what's going to be coming on that front and gives you a good idea on how you can really control that. Okay, pretty soon we're going to be having our first guest coming up. It's going to be Anna Clara. She's coming up in about 15 minutes, and she's going to share some portrait style and portrait editing. So I'm going to go on to some non-portrait editing for a moment, but let's tackle another question or two. Okay, so does Luminar support batch picture editing? Yes. There's not a batch command, but what you do is you synchronize and then batch export. So if you've got a bunch of pictures that you need to process, what you can do is select the first photo and develop it, and then sync it. So here, I've got a series of pictures with our skater gentleman here, and let's just develop the first image. So I'll go to templates, and it's going to analyze that photo, come up with some different suggestions, and I'm going to go with the influencer collection here. Give it a nice light wash. I like that. Quick edit. And we'll do a couple more with the AI tools. Again, stick with the AI tools as much as possible when adjusting things like exposure and structure, because that will intelligently adjust to each image. All right, I got that. I'll put a little gentle vignette on that one. Nice little light in the center, and feather that out. So now what I can do is take that, select everything else from that series, and just say right-click, Sync Adjustments. And remember, you can also click and add an entire folder at a time. So if you want to batch process a whole folder, just open the folder, adjust the first image to taste, and then sync it. Then, with all of those selected, just go to Export. And while it looks like you're about to export one image, when you click Save to Disk here, it's going to bring up your settings. Make sure you click Options here so you can control things like, is it sizing it? What type of file are you writing, right? Don't worry so much about the resolution. That's just for printing. But if you keep the original size here, there's no loss in quality. Or you can resize if need to. You could apply sharpening here for printing. Like if I knew these were going to be printed, I could apply a low general sharpening at the same time. And then just target a folder and click Save, and all of them will batch process and export with those settings to your target folder. So that's an easy way to do batching. Hope that that makes sense and just allows you to put together. Will composition AI ever be able to suggest alternative ratios that might look better? Yes. There's the short version, Tim. When, I can't tell you, but yes, that's something being considered strongly, is giving it some more options. Okay? So I hope that that makes sense. And Michael, I think we answered your question there about batching. So let's keep going. And let's see here. Is it possible to show Exif date? So we show certain information in the catalog view. So this is what you're going to be able to see. If you want to see other information, you can click and you can go down on an individual image and choose to show the photo actions panel. but that's going to give you the core information that we make visible. There's the Exif date right there. You can see the date that the image was captured. So that is part of that. If you are switching images, like we go back here to the grid view, you see that it's still showing that for the selected images. If you go into the edit module and then you return, you'll see now with update 2, the info window stays visible. This window used to open and close every time you switched views. Now it's permanent. So if you leave that open, it's going to stay open, and that's where you can view that information, Fabrizio. So I hope that that makes sense. That's where you can see that key info. You'll also see that your photo library is automatically organized by date, so that as you just add folders, it looks at the metadata and starts to auto-organize them. So you can browse by date very simply, and that makes it easy to find that content. Okay? All right. Let's do another landscape example and bring a few things to life. So great image here, just lacks a bit of contrast, but I don't want to overdo it. I'll start with templates, let it analyze the image, and it's suggesting the easy landscape category. One click with sunset did a nice job of bringing that to life. Let me try clean light. I think I like that. But I like what that sunset had with warmth. So I'm going to go into the edit area, come down to landscape, and just bring in a little bit of the golden hour, which emphasizes the sun, which is cool. Now I want to show you one of my favorite tools that most people skip. It's all the way down here at the bottom, and it's called Color Harmony. Color Harmony is amazing. If you are overusing vibrancy, you need to come down to Color Harmony because it has everything you need. First off, brilliance. Brilliance is like saturation, but it's the reds, where vibrancy tends to favor blues and greens. Brilliance favors the warm areas. So just a little bit of brilliance can bring out the warmth. Additionally, you have a global warming or cooling slider, but I don't want you to use that. Instead, come down to split color warmth. This one is really cool. Split toning is how you normally adjust things like the highlights and the shadows and shifting them in colors. Well, that's great if you're dealing with something where there's clear color cast or you want to create a vintage look. But here, we could target just the warms and the cools. So if I want to make the warm areas warmer, I could do that with one slider. And I could use the cool slider here to cool down the cool areas. And so it makes it very easy to target things by zone. So you can go after the warms and cools. And color contrast is going to just richen the depth of the color. It does it by, instead of boosting the saturation, it actually boosts the amounts of black and white in the color and optimizes the dynamic range of the color, giving you more contrast in that zone. So you can see what a powerful job that did with Color Harmony to bring that to life. Also, while you're in there, this is where you can deal with any fringing or lens distortion. And super contrast is another cool one. This allows you to add contrast to different areas. Like, notice how I just added contrast to the highlights. Instead of doing shadow highlight recovery, try super contrast. So much better. So if I just did a regular highlight recovery using something like the light tool that every other tool can do, watch how ugly this is. You know, it helped, but it just pulled everything down. And if I go after the shadows, it's way too aggressive. Super contrast lets you put gentle contrast into those areas and then also refine what's a highlight. Mid-tone contrast, put a little contrast there, and then more in the shadows, and again, you could define where it goes. So it's a very powerful tool. And if you get all the way to the end and you like it, click the three dots here and save it as a template. Or if you feel like this happens, oh, it's just a touch over processed. You hear that guy, it's always a guy, on Facebook saying, oh, your photo looks too much, you over processed it. Too much. Happens all the time, especially when we get excited while we're editing. Come down here to the master fader and just pull that down a little bit. And you could see that you could blend back with the original picture. And if you say, you know what, I like that. That's pretty solid there. Click, save that, and now it captures that and it resets it. So if you go over here into your templates now, you can go in and explore your own templates. You'll see it under My Templates, and there it is. And I could just rename that and call that Desert Light. And now when I go to other images that I have in the desert, I could just reuse my own edits. There it is, Desert Light. Click, it analyzes the photo, and it's going to apply that adjustment. And with a single slider, again, I could dial that into taste. So that way, you could take your looks, your styles, capture them, and create your own templates. And as you can see there, they're a lot easier to find now. You don't have to go into another tab and another tab 3 levels in. It's just right there under My Templates. So you can get right to the ones that you've created. Okay, I see some more questions here in the Q&A, as well as some of you using the chat. I'm going to pause for a moment, take a few questions, do my best to answer those. So thank you guys for this. And let's see here. So do you recommend stripping out previous versions of Luminar before you install a new version? So a couple things there. You don't have to do that, but you should make sure that the application is, shut down. You may have to run it so it downloads the update. That's fine. Also, if you're having problems, it never hurts to uninstall the previous version and install a clean version. Things like your templates and everything are stored in a different location. So all those extra add-ons are stored in your user folder. So if you update the application, they should still be there. As long as you stuck with those areas, you're fine. So for example, in the image here, some people complain, oh, I lost all my custom skies. That's because you didn't use the right command. At the top here, you will see the ability to show the custom skies folder. And if you put them in there, then they're going to be available even after you update, because this is located in your user library and it's independent of the application. So inside of there, you'll see other things like your looks, your favorites, your recent, your camera profiles, which is our DCP profiles. So that's where you can load those custom things up. So if you want to see that, you can go in and just click and say show custom skies, and this takes you right to your custom folder. Go up a level or two, and you'll see other things that you could load in there. And that's where those custom items belong. So if you put them there, then when you update, you don't lose things. And your update will let you upgrade the software, but all your custom presets and things stay put. And periodically, it never hurts to back that folder up. So just go over to your Show Custom Skies folder, click, and then what I would do is just go up a couple of levels and back that folder up from time to time so that you've got a good backup in case you ever accidentally erase things or have to reformat your computer. Okay? We don't do focus stacking inside of Luminar AI, Robert. So if you need to do that, there are extra applications for that you can use. Let me go through here and walk through. Let's see here. Ukaj is asking about Luminar AI for mobile devices. So I can tell you that we are actively exploring that. That's about all I can say. We've got our CEO on later today at 9. You might ask him that question. I'm not sure if he's ready to share an answer for that. It's not ready, but we are looking at it very strongly. Okay, so hope that makes sense. Let's go through here. Is Denoise as good as Topaz De Noiser? So let me cover things here. So first off, Topaz De Noiser, great product, and they work very hard on it. Not going to speak ill of it. I like it if you've got a really problematic image. The problem with Topaz De Noiser is it takes a good 20 to 40 seconds to process an image, and it's very slow as you're refining the sliders because it's got to reanalyze. So if you have heavy duty noise, it's a great product. But if you've just got regular noise in an image here, we've got some here. Let me show you what's possible. First up, always zoom to 100%. Go into your Denoise, and you'll find that up there under Denoise, and use your luminosity denoise. And then if needed, your color denoise. Your advanced settings here let you boost the intensity of that. And a lot of people miss that under advanced settings. Additionally, take advantage of details. These have negative sliders for a reason. So if there's a lot of noise here in the flat areas, reducing the large details will actually clean up some of that noise. And then you can counter it by boosting the medium details there and the small details, as well as a general sharpen. So look at how the dress and the hair are popping now. Nice and clean, good separation there, right? We get good separation there on the hair, but we didn't introduce a lot of noise into the background. So the secret there is don't just use denoise, also use negative details. And pulling down the large details is a great way to clean up the really flat areas there to get better looking content. Okay, I see a couple of you raising your hand. Toss your questions into the Q&A pod. You'll see the Q&A area, and that's where we see them. So I hope that that works. So good. Can Luminar import from the Photos library into the catalog? No, Frank, but I'll show you something that you might not know. So first up, this is for those on Mac OS. Okay, we work beautifully with Photos for Mac OS, but you have to do this. You go to System Preferences, and you go to your extensions area. For those of you who aren't on Mac, don't run away because we're just about to edit again. I'm just showing you a mechanical behind the scenes thing to connect the dots. Then scroll through here and you'll see all your photo editing tools that support it. And then what you could do is you just check a box to make sure that photo editing is available. Then launch Photos for Mac OS. Now, you're going to be assaulted here by my personal photos. Let me just find something here. We'll take this one here from the other day. Okay, so took a thing in portrait mode here. Great. Now, when I click the Edit button, if I click these three dots, you'll see Luminar AI. What it does is hands off right from Photos into Luminar. And you can then edit and adjust. And it will give you the ability to make those changes and everything else. And then when you're all done, you just click the Done button and it will be stored back inside, which is pretty cool. So that allows you that ability to hand off. You can see here it processed the image. And then I'm gonna go with this cool blockbuster look. And I wanna go with a nice teal and orange thing. And I'm gonna pop the structure here. Get some really good tight edges with structure. I like that. And a little bit of details enhancer there. Let's just pop the edges. I like it. And while we're at it, I'll go ahead and just level that with composition and fix the verticals. It analyzes the image there. And then when I'm all set, all I have to do is click the Save Changes button, and it's going to hand that back off into Photos for Mac OS. And it's in your Photos for Mac OS library. And if you ever need to, you could always click here and you can jump back in. As you can see there, you've got that great ability to connect those two applications. When you click Done, it's in your library and it's up to date. So that's the Photos for Mac OS integration, and I hope that that made a lot of sense. So we're about 5 minutes away from our first guest coming on. And Doug or anyone else, if when Anna arrives, just let me know. And I'll stop screen sharing as well. Let's take a few more questions and see what we can do. Can the mask color be changed? No, our mask color is set at the Rubylith standard color, Robin, so that you're not able to change the mask color, but you can affect its visibility. So if we're using the local masking tool here, let's say I want to brush in some adjustments up on the sky. So I take my paintbrush and I brush on the sky, but when I release, it disappears. Under the drop-down menu here, you could choose Show Mask. And this makes it easy for you to see that mask as you brush, okay? Additionally, you could switch to something like the gradient mask. And if I wanted to, I could click here and drag. And what I basically did is I combined the two masking tools. I created a brushed in area and then a gentle feathered edge transition. Now what we can do is globally adjust, and I could hide the mask since I'm done. Shortcut key is the /. And so if I wanted to cool that area down or warm it up, or maybe just pull the exposure down up there at the horizon like a virtual graduated neutral density filter, you could see there how we could dial in that. And remember, structure. Negative structure is a great way to defocus. So I could take that area and either make the sky sharper or more out of focus. And look at how I'm controlling the depth of field there. And I actually like that, so the background falls off a little bit. While we're at it, we could add another basic adjustment. You can have more than one. And I'm going to create another gradient mask. And this time, create a little bit of a gradual blend here for the direction of the light. To me, it feels like the sunlight is falling that way across it. Again, if you need to, you can show that mask, making it easier to reposition. And if you need to, you can combine masking tools. So I could use the erase tool here if I didn't want it to fall on her as much, so that I just masked her out. Press that slash key, and I'm going to say, you know what? Warm up the feeling of the sun there, and just pull down the exposure a little bit more or up a little bit more. And you see how it's adding the equivalent of a feeling of light. I like that. And we'll just put a little bit of vibrance in there. And now, instead of a vignette, we have a feeling of emphasizing the light coming down from the upper right corner onto our subject. So those basic tools there under local masking are very powerful. And then, of course, if we do add a vignette, we can go nice and gentle and take advantage of the inner light option here. And remember, you could choose the subject precisely. So this allows you to really see it. I'm going to take the feather down for a moment so you could really see what's happening. We could adjust the shape here, as so. Adjust the size, right? Use that choose subject option to place it. So choose subject, I'm just going to place it right there in our middle. And now feather it. Adjust the inner light to set her exposure, and then adjust the size and the amount so it's more subtle. You never want to hear the phrase nice vignette. That means you failed. But with a gentle vignette like this, we can really dial that in and get a nice sense of direction to the lighting to guide the viewer's eye to our subject of where we want them to look. And for those of you asking, this is a raw file that we're working on here. So we are doing raw editing right there. So that was a CR2 file. We do also support CR3 files now, and we added even more Canon cameras with the later update. Is there a way to add more than one effect or texture? Absolutely. So let's do that really quick, and then our guest should be arrived. So we'll go here under local masking and click the plus button, and I'll add a texture. First up, I want to add a film look texture. So what I could do is click on that and browse. So there's texture, and I'll just click load texture, and I'm going to go in, and here's that paper kit. And what I'm going to do here is I've got another category called film. I'll make these available a little later today. And I'll overlay this film texture. It's a PNG file, and you can kind of see that film grain. And what I'm going to do is blend that in soft light mode. Get something nice and subtle there, and it's just creating a nice richness and adding a bit. Now maybe I want a paper texture. So I'll click to add another texture, load it, and browse to another one. Let's go here, and we'll go to the paper texture kit that we gave away earlier in AI Insiders. You'll see lots of different options, and I'll go with this watercolor paper. Actually, let's go with wrinkly. And it layers it in. This one is not a PNG, so this one was a solid image, but I could use the blend modes here to mix that. Or if I change my mind, I can load in the PNG version. So the PNG version is going to be more subtle and make it easier to layer those wrinkles on top. So we'll just load that in there. There we go. And let me just, actually I'm going to load that in fresh. Add texture, load wrinkly. Let's go with that one. Comes in, and then with your opacity slider, you can control the intensity of the effect. So there I got just a little bit of distressing to it. And if you need to, you can also add in things like photographic borders. So again, add another texture. And if you've got a PNG texture, like a photographic border, I'll give a couple of these away later today too. These come from our friends at PhotoFocus. I can go in here to texture, and I see some filmic borders. So let's go here with a frame, and we can layer that in. I'll adjust it, And if I click the place texture, you get the full ability to scale here, and you can dial that in. So you can layer in borders like that on the edges if you want. Click the button and apply it. Load the texture, try another one, and you'll see just different types of options, and you can place those in. So that's going to give you that flexibility to dial it in to place. Okay? So easy enough, and you can start to layer those on. Okay? I'll have to check why that's not coming in at full opacity for some reason, but I'll figure that one out a little bit later.